Welcome to the Liberated Feminine Podcast. I'm Lucy Lampy, your host, and with me today again is our very special guest, Priscilla, Amie, who is an energy healer and has helped me in a multitude of ways, not just me, but also my kids, my family in the healing process and in all of these big transitions that we have had throughout the last, almost year and a half now. So, if you have not heard our episode on conscious conception and spirit babies, definitely go back and check that out. And in this episode, we are exploring all the things related to opening to new love after heartbreak and what it really takes to heal and move forward. Not just move on, but really move forward. So, Priscilla, I'll let you take it from here. And yeah, let's dive in.
Yes, I have had a front row seat to your healing, and, it's been a while, but it's just been so interesting to watch you grow. You have set such an amazing example of what it means to keep your heart open after heartbreak. And I just want to say, I've said it to you before, but I admire you so much for the way that you were able to keep your heart open in the midst of so much pain. Right. But also just even having love for your ex-partner, no matter how much pain was being caused, no matter what was happening, right? You kept your heart open, and that was that big important thing. And so some of the work that I do energy work, but I also do intuitive guidance and psychic reading. And a lot of that played into your path and just kind of unlocking some of that. And so today we just kind of wanted to go into what it really means to have your heart open, right? What it really means to prepare yourself for a relationship. Because one thing I always tell people, you do not want to enter a relationship with a closed heart chakra, right? When at the beginning of a relationship, we will always be at the perfect energetic match, right? And so if we are entering a relationship out of desperation, out of longing, with our heart closed, with fear, right, we will just end up in another karmic relationship, right? That's what we'll be resonating with. That's just us telling the universe, right, that I still need to heal. My heart's not open. Send me something to help me open my heart up. And typically when we place an order with the universe like that, it's not rainbows and sunshine, right? It's a lesson. It's an experience that's like, oh, you want to open your heart up? Like, we'll show you how to open your heart up. And here is the perfect karmic partner, right? Till you learn those lessons. Also a huge proponent of going back to our previous relationships and really milking that for all that it's worth. Making sure that we learned all of those lessons, everything that we signed up to experience, right? A lot of times we just get out of the relationship and we don't look back. And relationships are always going to be 50-50, right? We always showed up with our 50% in one way, shape, or form. And so it's really important also to go back and take a look and see what our 50% was in that. What was our energy showing up, right? Anytime a previous partner has hurt us, that's one of my favorite things to do is always look back. The Accidental Kink, right? That is a book that you recommended that I've gone through. It's this book that kind of fetishizes your everything that's happening to you. And so I like to take that into relationships is like, going back to any time someone hurt you and being like, okay, what was I getting out of it? What part of me said I wanted that? Because it could not have happened unless part of us wanted it in a way. And so I want to go back to you and just start kind of at the beginning of that breakup with Ryan and just how did you do it? How did you keep your heart open in the midst of everything that was happening? And another thing I just want you, to talk about a little bit is one of those things that was really hard for you. You were like trying to understand if I've done all of this work, right, then what is happening, right? So I would love to hear a little bit about that from you before we take it further.
Oh my God. Yes. There's so much. Oh, there's so much gold there. In those 5 weeks that we were uncoupling in the same house, cohabitating, doing our process before he left the house, it was every single day. There was not just something, but like lots of things, lots of things to bring gratitude into the separation in the middle of the pain. That I remember in one of our first sessions together, you and I had this physical pain in my chest and my back, and it was gone by the time we finished our session because there was just so much going on in my heart. Like it was just like so much grief. I remember that. I was like, wow, this really literally impacts my physical sensations and body. That there was so much of that. And one of the things that really encouraged me to not shrink back into what I would say kind of the victim mentality of why is this happening to me? Because I was already wondering that, like, what the fuck? I've done everything that I've felt, spirit telling me to do throughout these multiple years. And this is where it takes me. But one of the things I remember you telling me was that the more that I did keep my heart open and just keep feeling through things and keep receiving love from wherever it's coming from, that was going to help my kids also heal. And I was like, okay, if I don't feel like doing this for myself, like I'm sure as hell going to do it for them, because they will not experience what I experienced when I was a teenager with my father and my mom. And this is not that. And I had to keep telling myself, this is not that. And as you know, Priscilla, I've had to tell myself that multiple times through this relationship too, just to not project onto Brendan. Like, whoa, what I was scared of with Ryan, I was like, you are not him. Okay, this is not that. And I've had to literally say that out loud more times than I can count to him. Like, okay, I acknowledge, like, you are not him. This is not that. And this is actually my opportunity to heal that and like really transmute and release that. And like in my body, feel the distinction. This is like, I am safe here. I can express this here. I'm not going to be abandoned or rejected. But also I had a fundamental, I believe, understanding that it was something that I had signed up for before this life. Like it was playing out exactly as it was meant to. And I think that really helps a lot, because if you're just kind of flailing through life, like, what the fuck is happening? Why is this happening to me? I received the message distinctly that I was not meant to suffer through it, that it was painful, but I wasn't meant to suffer. And that carried me through a lot. So the openness, I would just bring where there was pain, I would let there also coexist celebration and gratitude. And also honoring that wherever our journey led in our relationship didn't negate or invalidate all of the love, all of the beautiful times, all of the, all of the celebrations that we'd had over the years, all the things we'd overcome. It was like, this is exactly what it was meant to be.
And I think it was actually the first session that we did. I saw I saw Ryan and I saw you, and you guys were on this nest, like on top of this cliff. And I saw Ryan push you out, right? But it wasn't like this from cruel or anything. It was just because he knew that you were ready to fly out of the nest, right? And he was going to stay in the nest, right? And he wanted to see you fly, and he knew the only way that you were going to go and really open your wings and spread and fly, right? This place that you had come to that he wasn't at, he had to push you out of the nest, and you had to go do it alone. And that's another thing, what I was saying earlier, relationships, we start off at the perfect energetic match, right? And in a perfect world, we will grow and evolve and stay a perfect energetic match for our partner. But that's not always what happens. That is not always what takes place. And the problem is when one of us starts to become a higher frequency, the person that is a lower frequency, right? Energy wants to be, equal, right? It always wants to be equal. And so there'll be that pull, right, to the person that's up, to the person that's down. And what happens is either the person rises up to meet you, right? Or you will go back down to them, because energy has to have balance, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes we just get to the point where our energies just aren't a match for each other anymore. And that's the hard part, is realizing that. And it can almost be easier when relationships end, when someone cheated or there's actual abuse, right? It almost gives us, we're like, okay, right? We have that thing that we can't accept. And so we can hold on to that. And that can be like, okay, I know I have to do this. But when we just aren't an energetic match for someone and we outgrow them, that's where it gets hard, because no one's the villain, right?
Yeah.
No one did anything wrong. You guys are meant to go on different paths. You were meant to start flying, and he's still grounded for however long he chooses to be, right? And it changed and it shifted. And we don't just have one romantic soulmate, right? That's the thing, is we all think there's that one person, but the truth is we have multiple romantic soulmates, and whether they come into our life depends on the past and the choices that we make. And so anyone that it's just because someone that you outgrow them, the relationship ends, doesn't mean that wasn't one of your great true loves. That wasn't one of your romantic soulmates. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means you guys aren't a match anymore. And that's hard to accept, because it's just, you guys aren't a match, and it doesn't make anyone the villain or anyone the problem. And Ryan's on a different path that you're on. You are on a different trajectory where you were meant to do specific things, right? And you guys got to a point where your path kept going and his didn't, right?
And I think that in a soul level, he knew that too. I think that's why I also really do deeply, deeply thank him. And when I do, feel into his higher self and connect in that way, it's like, thank you for setting me free, because I would not have, how like devoted I am to whatever I'm really committed to, if it wasn't for a very distinct fork in the road of, okay, I need to go do this and live life this way. And I realized, oh shit, I can't follow you there. That's not, like, that would be against my integrity. If it weren't for that and how that came to light, I would still be in it today. I would have taken something very distinct for the universe to say, hey, it's time. And it wasn't even like I needed to keep my heart open and heal so that I could find a new partner. We've talked about this. I was like, yeah, I'll date in a couple of years or a few years or whatever, when the kids are out of high school. And you were like, no, I think it's going to be sooner than that. I was in denial.
And I was like, I mean, I kind of see him in your space already, but it's, up to you when you let that in. And you had to be ready for it.
And he talks about this. He's like, I didn't want to miss the moment. He's like, everything happened so quickly and so unexpectedly, but I was not going to miss the moment. I was like, this is why we were right on time for each other, because he was not ready for this any sooner than I was. And when you said, whenever I'm ready, I assume that to mean, and I think a lot of people too, when they hear like, when you're ready for that relationship, the universe will bring it to you. But what does that mean? For me, being ready was when I really could see the experience and see Ryan with gratitude, with a reverence, with an appreciation. And that doesn't invalidate any of the pain or the real human experience that we have. Absolutely did not invalidate all of my kids' pain. And that was the hardest thing for me to reconcile, because for them, it's like, there's a lot more. There's a lot more there. But that readiness for me was what somebody recently called, I think his name is David Guillaume. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was talking about this with soul contracts and relationships. And he said how until you get to the point where you can genuinely bless your ex, like the universe is not going to bring you into that. The kind of relationship that, like you were saying, is not going to be the lesson that will help you to reconcile that wound that your soul came here to address. To heal the abandonment wound, we have to experience deep loss and pain and come through that and recognize that we're okay, that we're whole, that we're still sovereign, that we're still divine, that we're not lacking anything, and keep our hearts open. And I was like, oh, that makes sense to me. And that's what happened.
You did. And, this is for anyone that's maybe going through a breakup. This is a practice that I've done with you and others that I really loved, is sending them loving energy. You don't have to talk to them. You can be in no contact, right? But it's not about doing something for them. It's about doing something for you. And there's so much healing in that shift that you're talking about right now, is when you can have gratitude, where you can see the bigger picture, right? And holding on to that faith of just being able to be grounded in yourself and knowing like this was part of my path, this was part of my soul evolution, is so helpful. So if your breakup would look completely different if you didn't have that. That's why connecting with yourself, right? Connecting to your womb space, right? All of that is so important, because if you don't feel that as truth, then going through breakups is a nightmare, right? But like you were saying, if we don't have that gratitude, or there's something that happens when we have that gratitude. There's like this release that happens. There's a karmic loop that closes, right? Because we are here to have experiences. Karma is just an experience that we signed up for, right? It's not this evil thing out to get us. And in order to complete it, right, we have to learn the lesson from the experience. And when we're still holding on to grudges and anger and resentment, right, that loop doesn't close out yet. And if we want to be in that healthy, beautiful relationship, we have to close out that previous loop, or we will repeat the lessons that we were supposed to learn in that cycle with a different person, right? Even, psychology says we repeat our childhood trauma expecting different results. Well, on an energetic level, right, we are repeating the karmic lesson we signed up to learn with different people, because we're avoiding our childhood trauma and we don't want to acknowledge it. We don't release it from our body. And so we repeat it with different people, right? The same thing happens with our romantic relationships. We're going to we have these specific karmic lessons that we want to learn. And we've talked about you and I have completely different karmic relationships, right? The karma that you were set out to learn, we've talked about this before, like you were meant to go through all of that with Ryan, right? Where I've had like a more of an avoided attachment approach. You've had like the opposite of like, I will work through everything, right? And I have so much respect for you for that. But that was part of your journey, and we all have our different things. And if you start looking back at your previous relationships, you'll start to see patterns, even if the relationships look completely different, right? There will always be those repeating patterns. And so it's so important to go back. Your previous relationships, going through those with a fine tooth comb is the best thing that you can do when you are single and preparing for your next relationship. Because if you actually, especially once the pain is gone, you're separated from it, you'll go back and you'll start seeing things, right? And then you sit with it, right? You notice a pattern. One of mine, for example, was realizing I shut my heart chakra down in fights. And I never thought about how that affected a partner. I just saw me doing what I needed to do to protect myself and not seeing how that impacted a partner, but I saw it clearly. And so in all of my past relationships, right? If that is something I don't want, I have to learn how to keep my heart open in an argument. And so the universe keeps sending me men that are going to trigger that, right?
It's a gift, right?
Right? And so if I want to stop that, then I had to sit with myself and be like, where is that coming from? It was coming from my childhood, right? It was coming from my first relationship with a man. It was coming from my dad. And I had never allowed myself to look and see that. And I wasn't completing the karmic loop. right? I just kept repeating it because I wasn't going back and going to where it started. And that's what we need to start doing with things. So if you are in a single phase, go through all of your previous relationships. They are filled with healing gold, right? They are filled with a roadmap where you will start seeing the patterns and seeing it so clearly of being like, oh, yep, you don't need a psychic to tell you what you're doing wrong. Like, you will see it yourself. And you need to start sitting with those and start unraveling. And another thing that you were talking about earlier when you were saying, oh, like, I'll start dating in high school or when my kids are in high school. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And part of that, like, why it came in so quickly is because you were able to have that gratitude, but also you held your heart open. And that is why you attracted someone. Usually if someone would get into a relationship that quickly after a breakup, I told you that I was like, I would usually be like, no, let's not do that, right? You never want to jump into a relationship.
I would say the same. I'd be like, girl, what?
Like, what are you doing? But it wasn't like that at all with him. And then I took a look at your guys' charts and I did a little digging and I was like, oh, well, it also helps to know that as well. And I was like, no, this is a man that's clearly here to stay. But the reason that you were able to call in a partner that is a romantic soulmate is because your heart was open. Because if you had been stuck in that victim mentality of keeping your heart closed, allowed yourself to loop in that victim mentality, right? You wouldn't have matched with Brendan. You guys, it would have been pushed off to a different time. You would have called in a relationship to help you break those loops, to help you get out of victim mentality. And when we get sent those relationships that help us get out of victim mentality, they usually include things that make us feel victimized even more because we're meant to break through and meant to push through.
Yeah. And that's what I was afraid of too. I remember so many sessions we spent working on, oh yeah, you still believe that this is too good to be true? Because I thought, wait, are we sure that this is not a lesson? Are we sure that this is not just the same thing in a different package? Because I think also when we're so acutely aware of the healing process and all of our traumas and our karmas and our things, it can be like we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, especially, us who have a lot of Scorpio. It's like, okay, what's the catch, And for it to be a real thing, that was the biggest challenge for my ego through this relationship, was really like softening and relaxing into it and trusting and opening more than I've ever opened. How open I was through my heart being shattered, I would say, I don't say this lightly, it pales in comparison to how much I've had to open my heart even more to really trust and allow it to be good, allow love to just be bigger than I've ever experienced it. Because that I unexpectedly was scarier than anything that I've had before. Because I thought, oh my God, if my heart is broken through this, like would I just be destroyed? But then I came to a full circle back around to, no, this is exactly too what my soul wanted and what both of our souls chose. Even the kids, what their souls chose. Like, we're all in on this together. And I remember there was this one time, I think I've told you this, it'll be fascinating for those of you listening. There was a point where he and I were connecting early on, and I had this very vivid dream where there was this other, I will call him like a candidate, that was kind of in my field, not in my conscious like interest, like, oh, I think me and this guy, there's something. No, there was nothing happening in this reality. Nothing. We just follow each other on social media. And in my dream, there was a moment where I was about to choose that guy. I won't say his name because chances are some people will know who he is, and he's single. But But then in like right at the nick of time, I was like, wait, no, I choose Brendan. And it was like my soul in my dream, in that very deep subconscious space, really made that decision of like, because I had two distinct paths. I could be in this entertainment with this entertainer, with this person who's like, fun, like you do all these little skits and stuff. I love that shit too. You know me. My Leo 10th house is like, let's entertain and be seen. Or I could go down this path of being like going deeper into my medicine and being with this medicine man, this man of the earth, this man of the soil. And he's not flashy, he's not like, and I was like, these are two very different outcomes for me. And I was like, I choose Brendan. And I woke up feeling like, wow, what was that? That guy did not shoot his shot for another 8 months. Obviously it was way too late before he slid into my DMs and asked me on a date. I said, I'm sorry, but I am not sorry. I am
you got not available. Yeah, sorry, I'm in a different country now, sir.
Yeah, but isn't that funny? Because we tap into these things on the spiritual level or on the astral level on a different dimension before this 3D reality catches up, because he literally did ask me out, but way later.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah. But yeah, the openness, it's that. And I would say too, to what you were saying earlier with, the universe will keep bringing back someone to help you learn that thing that you're here to learn, but also a way to, I would say, bring that cycle to completion is by making a different choice when you're given the opportunity. So if you know that you keep your heart closed when you're in an interaction with someone or a relationship or even just a friend, to keep your heart open, then that's also doing that work there.
100%. Yes. Is making those different choices. And one of a great book for anyone that needs a little bit of help finding their karmic loops, The Love Sequence by the Gene Keys. I highly recommend. It's based off of astrology. It is the middle book of a sequence, but you could read it standalone. And I always recommend it to everyone because it uses your astrology chart to help guide you and show you some things. And so that is it's a good book even if you are in a relationship, right? It really helps pinpoint some of our core love wounds based off of our soul contract, our chart, right? And so that's a really good, great book to go through. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And with Brendan just taking that leap. And another thing is, like you said, is just talking more about like how you needed to be open to receiving it as well. And you have those moments of like, it's too good to be true. A way to practice that before you get into a relationship, because I know that I'm going to struggle with it. We all struggle with that, especially because, it happens not just in relationships. It happens with work stuff, life stuff, where we're like, we get what we order from the universe and we're like, oh no, is that too big? Like, can I hold that? It's scary, right?
Yeah.
But I always tell people, start fantasizing, right? And you'll find that if you can't fantasize a perfect happily ever after, anytime something hijacks that fantasy, right, where your doubts, your shadow will start creeping through when you're doing that practice of sitting with what you really want. And so let that, whenever something creeps through that takes it in a direction you don't want it to go, that is something that will show up in your relationship. If you can't even have a picture perfect fantasy, right, then how are you going to have it in real life? And so that is a great way to practice and start allowing our body to feel comfortable and safe with this perfect, beautiful, healthy relationship that we want to call in. So practice that. Fantasize. Another thing that you talked about was like feeling that energy come in. Like if we start tuning in, we will feel the energy of our new partner. You can call that in. You can connect to it just like you can any energy. And so when, I know it can be hard sometimes when you've been single a long time, right? But just start preparing yourself for it. Start shifting out of that loneliness and realizing you aren't alone at all, right? Start connecting to that energy. Start letting yourself feel what it's like to be in a happy relationship with those fantasies. I read romance novels, which has actually been so helpful, right? Do whatever you have to do, but start allowing yourself to feel what that feels like, right? It's just like with anything that we want to manifest and anything that we want to get our body ready for. When we go into these fantasies, right, we are preparing our body to hold it, right? So be a little delusional, right? Have those fun moments of dream of the possibility, because if you can't do that, then how can you expect it to land on your doorstep, right?
Yeah.
We have to open up to that. We have to allow ourselves to get excited about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and otherwise it's like if it does happen to show up, then we'll push it away because we're scared. Like, no, this is a joke. This is a hoax. This is fake. Right. And that's it too with the manifesting. When people talk about manifesting their dream partner, and it's like it's part of whatever you expect that the other person is going to fulfill for you. Source that from the source, and also be open to someone actually giving to you in ways that you don't think maybe are realistic or no one has ever modeled, and just challenging that and seeing where you find jealousy of others who have that, but you don't think that it's for you. And that's part of the work too, is sitting with the discomfort of envy and jealousy and thinking, cool, they can have that, but that's not for me, for whatever reason. Maybe I came into this life with too much karma, or I'm not high value enough or whatever. But also it's timing. I think we got to speak to that as well, because everyone's timing is going to be different. Someone might spend 10 years being single before they're ready, before their time has come. And maybe they missed out on a bunch of painful relationships during that time where they didn't need to get the lesson. And it wasn't about waiting for a lesson. It just wasn't time. And so that's why I hesitate to be like, here's your roadmap to manifesting.
True. And also we can be unknowingly pushing it away. That's a really, really big thing. We talked about this with pregnancy, right? Yeah. In our last episode, I know for a fact I'm currently doing that with a romantic partner right now. I know that I've been pushing him out of my space. And a lot of us are doing that subconsciously without realizing it, right? And just like we can push off a pregnancy because like we have fears around it. It doesn't exist. It can't be for us, right? And just that act alone can push it out of your space because you're saying, I don't want this yet. I don't want that order.
What are those fears too? Like, what are some of those fears? Because we've talked about this in our sessions, and I would love to share those with the listeners. Like the fears that push away anything we want, whether it's relationships, a pregnancy, money, specific things. Like one of them I'll kick off is like the fear of losing our freedom, our independence.
Huge. Fear of losing our independence is huge, especially and it's really easy, especially when you find your peace, to latch onto that because you're like, oh no one is taking this away. Like you can pull this out of my cold dead hands. Like you are not taking my peace, right? And especially when we've been healing for a while, we broke up with someone, we had a really bad experience and it took us so long to heal out of that. We find that peace. Like I was talking about that exponential kink book, right? A lot of times, we are getting what we want, and we'll push that out by being like expecting a man to take our freedom, or even a woman, right? Like whatever relationship you're in, like that's a huge one. Is we want our peace, and we want that so bad that we don't. And if we think that being in a relationship can threaten that, we will block that so hard. Or being, fear of opening up to people, right? Opening up your shadows, your vulnerabilities, right? if I find that perfect match, well, then I'm actually going to have to be vulnerable about everything, right? Because it's easy to make excuses not to be vulnerable when you're in an unhealthy relationship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But it will make you expand like crazy.
Right.
It's like, here's your next expansion opportunity.
And that's, and that's the thing is when we get that dream relationship, there's a lot of things that we felt more comfortable doing in unhealthy relationships that we may not realize that we were doing. And a lot of it has to do with emotional vulnerability, right?
Safety. But like, that's how we keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
Our illusion.
And a healthy relationship, a healthy partner threatens your ability to do that, right? Because like you said, it was harder for you to like holding your heart open in this healthy relationship was harder than it was in this intense breakup where you have all these kids involved. You've shared decades together, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. And so sitting with yourself and really asking yourself, like, that's a huge thing for me that I was realizing as part of my push off is realizing I'm going to have to be vulnerable in a way that I've never had to before, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be in a relationship where because the thing is I didn't just have walls up to them. I had walls up for myself. And that's how you really work through that, right? Because how are we going to feel comfortable sharing our vulnerabilities with someone when we won't even look at those ourselves, right? That is a huge thing. That's terrifying. If you can't even look at your shadow wounds yourself, you're going to be terrified to share them with someone else. You can't even do it by yourself with no one knowing about it. And that's how you prepare yourself, right? You have to start diving into your shadow. Our shadow is just the things that we hide from ourselves. And loving yourself through that. When you see the things that you want to hide away, that you feel shame, guilt, whatever it is, right? You have to allow yourself to see those things because a deep, loving relationship, that perfect dream relationship that you want with that perfect partner demands vulnerability or it will not be that perfect dream partnership. It won't be.
Yeah. Because what is that dream partnership anyways? It's actually a place where two imperfect people can be imperfect and can be whole. It's not like we never have any pains or challenges or things or bumps, but it's like, okay, you can both navigate it together. And it's not what I find that too with us, there's not a butting heads conflict that when we need to work through something, we're able to do it as adults. And I'm like, wow, that was an edge for me because I didn't realize that there was fear in that for me, that if it's not intense and chaotic, is it productive? And also a fear of sharing control, of actually being a team and collaborating on anything and everything in life and not just me calling the shots. I needed that in my marriage for the time that I had that, because that was me, finding my voice. What do I want? What do I need? I didn't have that growing up. So it's like Ryan's soul was like, here, I'm signing up for this. I'm going to do this with you. I'm going to do this part with you. And this is as far as I can take you. And then I'm basically handing you off to my bro here, but, and I've literally had that visual. I think in one of our sessions, we had something like that where there was kind of a blessing you and goodbye on his part.
I think I remember that was when both of Ryan and Brendan's energy was in there. Remember that? It was kind of like, here's the baton, bud.
Yeah. And I was like, am I the baton? I'm like, okay.
But at the same time, that's such a good point of just like Brian was meant to guide you. You guys were meant to go through specific things together. And then and you guys were meant to create these lives together. And that was the purpose of that relationship. And it wasn't meant to last forever. And that's okay. And there's nothing either of you could have done to change that, right? You guys were both meant to go in different directions. after certain things were completed. And it's beautiful.
And it was
right?
there in the charts. It was right there in our charts all along. If I had known, I was not meant to know. I was not meant to know. I had an astrologer, who read our synastry and our composite charts, and she said, "Yep, literally, this is the month that everything it's right on time." I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Because I was not meant to know. If I had known, I would have been bracing myself for it. And so, also, so much of this for you listening, it's like those of you listening, it's that it's just trusting that you will be shown what you need to be shown in the timing that you need to know. Because I felt blindsided and I felt betrayed by the universe. So yeah, sure, I did feel to an extent abandoned by Ryan. I felt abandoned by my own intuition. I questioned, did I miss something? Was I blind? But ultimately, the deepest pain that came up was I felt betrayed by God, by the universe. And that was honestly when I hear people talk about, having to experience some deep loss to learn the soul lesson. I'm like, that was it. It wasn't the marriage. It was what that opened up for me between me and God. Of like, how could you do this to me? I was a good girl. I did everything I was supposed to, and I was still punished. And it's no, this is just in how you interpret it. This was not a punishment. This was redirection. And that was the deeper wound that I needed to explore.
The reason that you didn't see it coming at all and were so blindsided is because you were so anchored into knowing that you were on the path that you were supposed to be on. And when you felt that, that's the reason you didn't see that coming, right? I've had that happen to me before with something. It was like a job ending, and I was like not even worried about it because I was like, oh, everything's fine and everything's happening exactly how it's supposed to be. And then this huge blow up happened, and I was like, why is something negative happening? Like, I knew with my full chest everything was going to be okay, and it was, because it was me supposed to go somewhere else. And and so it can be really confusing when that happens for us, when we feel so grounded in our intuition, we're locked in, we know we're on our path, and we're like, yes, this feels good, I can feel it. And then something like this happens, and we're like, was I wrong? How did I not see this coming? Like, I've been so tapped in knowing, and that's the thing is because you were correct. You were tapped in and knew everything that was supposed to be happening was happening, but part of that was an ending that was painful, right? Mm-hmm. And so that can be really confusing when it happens, when it's not just relationships. It can be like work, whatever it is, like different things in life that suddenly end. And then we start questioning God. We start questioning our own intuition because we're like, how did we not see this coming? Right. And it's the thing is you were grounded into knowing that you were on the path that you were supposed to be on, and that felt good. And so when something that doesn't feel good happens, like we think it's a mistake or we were wrong or whatever it is, and that's not the case, right? And it's like the more that we cling on to the things that are no longer for us, the more pain it causes, right? And that's hard when you're ending a relationship, or it can be terrifying when it's a job, right? It can be so scary because the unknown, right? We consciously plan these things out and think we know what's best for us, right? We have these plans, and the universe brought you something different, right? If now here you are, over a year later, you're in a different country with a different man, with a baby in your belly, and you were exactly where you're supposed to be. You were exactly where you're supposed to be, and it's something that is beautiful in its own different way, and it's something that now it's aligned with where you're at, where your previous relationship wasn't, right? And that's the thing is like we want these relationships to last forever, but there's so much beauty in having multiple relationships. Like, what an amazing thing that you get to have these experiences with these two different men that are bringing in completely different love, different lessons, different experiences, right? There's such beauty in that. This has been drilled into society where like you're a failure if your relationship ends. If you didn't pick the right person, you did pick the right person. Ryan was the right person in the moment. That it will never change. He was the right person for you to go through all of those things with. That you did not pick the wrong person. You had 4 beautiful children that you were meant to create, right? And it's you that gets validated so clearly then when we see Brendan come in and then we read the contracts he has with your kids. This was a plan, right?
Everyone was in on it. It's like everyone recognized it on a soul level too. That's why when people ask like, well, do your kids get along with him? Yeah. Since day one, it was like they knew each other, you know, their souls recognize each other. And I think also there's this bit about really, I very consciously done everything I can to not fall into that ego trap of like, this is better than that. Oh, this relationship is okay. There are some things, some concrete facts. There isn't chaos. There isn't a lot of fighting. There isn't yelling. There isn't throwing things. There isn't all the stuff that I had to learn and grow through with Ryan. I don't have to do that here because he and I signed up for that, not me and Brendan, you know? And so it's things like that. So I can see the perfection in it and just see, no, that was perfect for that. Yes, there was an impact. Yes, there were consequences. But also, I think that that's something that we tend to just in our human nature think what I have now is better than that instead of recognizing the perfection and the alignment in what was and what is.
Exactly what you did. It's not about it being better. It's about you. It's about you, your capacity to love, what you've grown through. Your frequency is higher. It has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with you. You, all of the things that you went through, all of the things that you learned. And so on the surface level, it looks, yes, quote unquote, better, right? But it's just you, right? It's you. It's your resonance. It's your frequency. It's your capacity to receive. It is your self-love. It is your self-worth, right? Because relationships, right? No one can do something to us, right? That part of us didn't agree to, that part of us doesn't feel, right? And that's one thing that I've been working on is just seeing anyone that has hurt me and thanking them for it. Not actual conversations that I'm having. I don't call them or text them and say thank you for emotionally damaging me, right?
Right. Thank you for abusing. No.
It's like going back and just being like, part of me felt like that was what I was deserved. That was what my worth was. Like they were reflecting a part of me back to me, or it could not have taken place, and that is a fact. Right?
Yes.
And so how do I have gratitude for that? Thank you. Thank you for showing me part of myself that I need to love. Thank you for helping me find that. Thank you for letting me see that part of that shadow, because now I can sit with it. I can give myself the love that I deserve. I can heal that wound, right? And that's just the way that we got to start looking at, because when you start seeing that way, you can't be a victim, right? You're a co-creator. You're a co-creator in everything that happens to you. And once you take on that responsibility, you take your power back. Things start shifting. Your relationships start changing, right? You start seeing things differently. And so that's what so many people get stuck with. And I get it. Like sometimes I look back my childhood, I'm like, bro, you're telling me that I chose that? Like, that's not it.
Yeah.
Like
why would I choose that? I wouldn't choose that, you know?
No, but I did. Yeah. And so when you can really embody that and feel that, it's like, you take your power back. Things start, and it's not that things don't hurt still, right? But there's a release, an opening, because we can latch onto our trauma and hold on to it in our body. And that's when we're in that victim mentality, like I've seen it in energy healing sessions where it's like they're tugging back on what I'm trying to release because it becomes like a part of our identity, right?
Yes.
It's like a badge of honor of like, you hurt me, you wounded me. Like we want to hold on to that when we're still in that victim mentality, because when we're in that victim mentality, like it happened to us. But that's not it, right? We helped create it. Everything that happens, we helped create, right? And so you got to take that power back and start seeing that in your relationships. You are helping create it. And so if you are kind of in this place where you're single, right? Start going back. Use all of that old material and go back and make the most of it. And start sitting with yourself. If you've been single for longer than you want, go through and see, is there something, do I have any fears of being in a relationship? If Prince Charming got dumped on my doorstep tomorrow and it was like just everything you've ever wanted, what anxiety springs up? Does anything spring up? Because it will, if you actually sit there and practice with that and think about like, you're going to be like, oh, well, I wish I had this handled, or I wish I had this, or maybe give you like a little, like, where is that anxiety coming from? Because if you've been single for longer than you wanting to, there's something that will pop up for you when you do that practice every single time. And you have that power of when you want to call something in, right? When you want to be open to receiving it. Right? Figuring out where you are blocking yourself, but doing, there's certain things that we will not have pulled out of us until we're in a relationship. That's just part of the game of our contracts. There's just certain things we have to learn in the thick of relationship, but we can do a lot of work outside of that. And so,
and bring that.
And that's what you were doing, even though that wasn't your goal at all. The work you were doing was preparing yourself for Brendan. It was.
And then who we've both become through it too. It's really been incredible to me, because to see for two people to hold their hearts open and be vulnerable and address those fears as they come up within the context of relationship. Like, oh, if I show them this, I've never been able to show this to somebody else of the opposite sex and it be received. Like, what's different about, I'm having faith that this is different. And then they respond in an open, loving, kind way, and it reinforces it to a nervous system. Oh, okay, this is not that. And that's what I mean. Like, there've been so many of those for both of us that it's like, we get to learn that. It's like when you get into that relationship that then you think, oh, is this too good to be true? That's in some ways where the work really begins, because all those fears that you never had to feel before, they come up really, really big. And another one of those too, that fear of like, well, who am I without my victimization? Will it happen to me again if I don't protect myself? And so the whole thing about like really blessing each other. And I think also a lot to be said about forgiveness and how it's not ever justifying someone's, if there is abuse involved, for example, it never justifies that. It's about unhooking that energy from your life so that you can be free. It has nothing to do with the other person. Like,
not at all.
People can go back and forth all day about this one, but it's for you. And it's not about justifying or reconciling. It's not about reconciling.
No.
It's about releasing your attachment to that identity and that pain. And that's hard. It can be hard to do, especially when there was, abuse or cheating or things like that. Yeah.
It is hard, but exactly, just forgiveness is not about them at all in any way, shape, or form. Forgiveness, right? I always say, like, when we are part of forgiveness for me, right, is healing the part of me that's still holding on to the pain. And so it has nothing to do with forgiving them, right? when we can't forgive someone and let it go, right? It's because there's something in your body still. There's pain, there's trauma, there's shame, there's heartache, there's grief, whatever it is. And so forgiveness for me is about me healing all of those things that I'm holding on to. It's about getting that energy of theirs out of my space, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to communicate with them to do that at all. Not at all. And, it was when I was in training, when I was training through like the Berkeley Psychic Institute program, one of the things that they had that was like one of my like aha moments, and I was so stubborn and I didn't want to accept it, is they had us do this practice where we basically were communicating with the souls of someone that really hurt us. And I did my dad, and they were like, ask them how much they love you on a soul level. And his love for me was unconditional, infinite, right? On a soul level. And I was like, no.
That can't be right. Read it again.
What are you talking about? Like, that man curses the day I came into that household. Like, I am his karma, okay? But it was but that's how it is with all of these relationships, right? Some of the souls that, like, before we incarnate, right? Some of the souls that sign up to hurt us the most are the ones that we are closest with, right? They're like, oh, like, I will do this intense lesson. I'll be the one. It's like literally an act of love for them to do this. And then we get to Earth and it does not feel like that at all in any way, shape, or form. And so once I kind of accepted that, there's comfort in that, and realizing, like, on a soul level, it's not how this is. Right?
Yeah.
I signed up to experience these, and I had an ex-boyfriend that's one of my biggest practices. He raped me, and really the anger that I had towards him and the forgiveness, it's been so difficult, but that's always what I go back to, is as I see what that did to me, it bursted my healing journey so quickly. It made me finally face everything that happened to me in childhood, because I realized, like, I was like, okay, I keep repeating my childhood. Clearly, I got to face it, right? Why? Because I understood energy at that point, and I was like, why did this happen to me? And it helped me excavate everything that was an energetic match for what he did to me, and realizing that it's the most freeing thing when that finally clicks with you. And it's a very hard place to get to realize that I co-created being violently raped. Like, that's a very hard thing to break through. But once I did, and I'm not going to lie, I still have times where anger pops up. And then that's what I always have gratitude for where it brought me, right? It pushed me to face things that, what would have happened if I didn't face those things, right? And realizing I needed that. I needed that for my growth. I needed that. Like, he was what finally got me to close the loop of this sexual trauma that kept repeating over and over, right? And so it's going back through those traumas and being like, where did this originate? Where is this really coming from? What am I avoiding? What am I holding on to? And once I got all of that out of my body, I have no doubt that I will never experience any kind of sexual trauma again in my life. I know that I'm not an energetic match for it, because I dug deep and I searched for that. And that is how you find safety in your body again. And that can be said of all of our relationships. And we have to get out of victim mentality to take our power back.
Yes. And that doesn't mean also that we're bypassing our humanity.
No.
This is where people usually get kind of caught in the weeds, because they think it's either or. And that's very, it just doesn't work like that. You can honor the pain. Like, every time you feel the anger, you can feel it in your body. You can work with it. You can use it as an access point of, something deeper in yourself to reclaim more power. And you can decide, hey, I'm not talking, that person's not going to be in my life. That person's not a friend. You're not reconciling in the name of forgiveness and spirituality and oneness. No, you're like, okay, there is a line I'm drawing here. There is a boundary. There is a dissonance in that energy. It does not match. We can recognize that and not abuse ourselves or hate ourselves or loathe for having chosen on a soul level the things that we've chosen. So there's just a lot of, I think, rabbit holes of distortion that we can follow often with the two camps of thought on why do bad things happen. It's like, okay, beyond the space of duality, that like on that soul level, can we see from that space while honoring our human needs? Mm-hmm. And so, thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure that there are people who can relate and they don't know how to navigate. What am I supposed to do to the rapist? Am I supposed to welcome them back? No, but you release and you disidentify as their victim for you.
Exactly. You disconnect from being the victim, right? And, I will just add that everything I just talked about, it's a journey and it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes practice and work, but it is worth it, right? But it's not easy, because it's not an easy lesson for me to learn through. I was like, I want to be a Scorpio rising with an 8th house stellium, but Scorpio and Pluto in the first house. I signed up for trauma, okay?
We signed up for some deep alchemy. Anybody who has Pluto, Mars, and Scorpio with a lot of Scorpio, we are in it, y'all. We are the alchemists.
Yes, we are. But, and that's the thing is I came into the world an energetic match, and, my soul wouldn't have signed up for this if I didn't think that I can handle it. Or what if like, you don't sign up for a class that you don't think that you can do. Like, my soul was like, you got this, girl. Like, we can do this. Or you wouldn't have signed up for it. You would not. You would never do that, right? Like, we don't sign up for things that we don't think we can do. Like, we're not going to go there. And so just knowing, like, your soul had the confidence that you could go through all of these things and make it through the other side, or you never would have gone, like, you wouldn't have picked it. You were like, all right, this is the ride I want to go on, and I'm going to get through the other side, and I'm going to have my Phoenix moments. Buckle up.
Yeah.
And so it's just, preparing for a relationship, make sure you're going back and finding all of those little nuggets and things that you can learn about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. We need to get rid of our baggage from previous relationships. We have to. Yeah.
And remember, it's not just about like healing too. Like, it's like the purpose of healing is not to be fixed. It's to feel free and whole and to feel joy and more love and peace and like that fullness of life. It's not just like, let's excavate so that we can be fixed and then we can have love. Then we will have earned love. It's such a trap. And that's not healing. It's just a perpetual cycle of suffering.
Healing is just about making more space for your soul to come in your body, right? Just think of it that way, right? You're just making more space for more of you that you want in your body. And when we release these things from our body, that's what we're making space for. More beauty, more love, right? Whatever we want to fill those spaces with. And, I'm like, we can talk about this for hours, but just if you leave with one thing, right, it's you are not desolate to be single forever, right? There's more than one romantic soulmate out there for you, right? And you have so much power, whether that comes into your life at all. So if you can't find that man, right, start looking at what you're doing to cancel that order, right? Yeah. We have so much power. We have we are creating the life that we're living, right? So figuring out, sitting with yourself and being like, what am I ordering, right? What am I ordering on a soul level in my body, right? What am I possibly doing to think I'm protecting myself from something? Because a lot of times that's what it is. We are protecting ourselves by not having a new partner come in, right? In one way, because we were hurt in one way or another. So how do we go back and find those little things and love them, right? Bring them to the surface and have that love, and going through having those fantasies, right? Letting yourself fantasize. And that was one thing I had to make a list. Making a list is so important to do, right? Actually think about what you want. And it's not about just traits in them. One thing I always like to tell people to focus on how you want to feel, how you want to feel seen, not just what this man does. Those are important, like their character and all of these things. Those are important. But what's most important to like really get you ready is like, what are they going to bring out of you? How are they going to see you? How are they going to make you feel? Right? Those are very important things to take a look at. A lot of times we don't even know. We realize that we have never been seen in a way that we want to be seen, and we can be afraid of that, right? If you actually start being really vulnerable and be like, I want him to see XYZ about me, and then you realize like, my God, no one's ever seen XYZ about me. That is scary. Like, am I putting a wall up around that? Does that, am I saying, do not invite a man in that's going to see that, right? Am I doing that? Because a lot of times we are. Right?
Yeah. And that list too, I remember I put it off for some weeks, and then when I finally did it, literally the next day we started reconnecting. And it was just that. It wasn't the physical attributes, all the things, all the preferences. I would say the bonus goodies on top. That was my last page. Everything before that was, how do I want to feel around him? What do I want him to appreciate about me? What quirks and things do I want him to be like celebrating? You know, what do I want my kids to feel around him? And all of that. What I want him to notice about the kids. And so just a lot of the deeper stuff. And then the bonus things, like, okay, it would be nice if he was between this height and he was maybe this ethnicity or that way. I'm like, this is just for fun, you know, just like,
you're like, okay. I want a big, tall chocolate man.
And meanwhile, my best friends and even my teenage daughters were like, we see you with a black man. I'm like, okay.
I know. They said, but you know, the thing is when you made that list, right? It wasn't just about you creating that order. It's like you gave yourself permission to have it. That is that huge thing, is giving ourselves permission to have things. We do the same thing with money. A lot of times we're not giving ourselves permission to have it. And you gave yourself permission. You said, okay, like I can have these things. And then literally the next day he's like, hey mama.
Yeah. And I realized it was like, he already existed, you know, clearly, but it was like, so that I could recognize him. And I think that's something too, the distinction. It's not like you're making up this man out of thin air. It's like helping you really drop into the soul space and create it from that place. And so that your human self can recognize when you see that person. And I remember looking back at my list the next day, I was like, wait, is this him? Like, hold on a second.
Let me check my notes. Oh, I think I did. This is what I ordered.
I'm like, well, that came really fast. So,
and the thing is because you were open to it, right? that's a huge thing. So many of us don't realize that we aren't open to it, right? It's a lot, like, you know, I'll speak just like on us that have avoided attachment wound that are healing through that, right? That's a big thing if you struggled with avoidance, right? We will get into relationships that permit us to be avoidant, which are never healthy, right? We like to be avoided. And so if you were attracting relationship after relationship that triggers your avoidance, part of you likes that.
Or your anxiety, because we have a lot of anxious attached ladies too. It's like,
it's the same thing, right? We like it It is a coping mechanism that makes us feel safe. Both anxious and avoidant attachment makes us feel in control, even though we look back and we're like, we are crazy.
Why would I want that? No, there's part of it that helps you feel safe.
It does. It helps you feel safe. And so taking a look at that, right? How do I create a new safe? How do I create a new safe in my body? And really sitting with that.
Yeah. Putting those things into practice. Yes. And I know that every time that we've had our sessions, there's more space created and cleared for the stuff that I want in there to exist more fully, like the connection and the openness and the inspiration and all of that. So for those who are wondering where to find you, where can they find your work and your offerings?
So my website is theenergeticbody.com. And so I do one-on-one sessions. I also have a first-time client special that's 50% off. And I also do a membership now that has somatic energy healing. So those are really great. They call in different healing guides when you play them. I also do live sessions as well. So that is also an economical way to start working with me. And my Instagram is the energetic body. And then there's an X at the end of that on Instagram, and same on TikTok.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. Y'all go check out her work. And if you can, definitely work with her one-on-one or do the membership, because it is really powerful. It's really powerful work. And whether you're starting out or you're you're years deep into this sovereignty journey, and we continue to work together. So there's always layers. There's always things that come up.
There's always another
more
layer
to grow through. Yeah. It's like, oh, guess what's coming up now? My mom guilt. Maybe for another episode. Yeah. But even that, since that session, so much has opened up and I'm just feeling lighter. And so every single time, it's just, there's always a gift. So, So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Priscilla, again.
I love you so much. And I hope everyone listening just know you can have anything that you want. You just have to make space for it. So if those romance novels, those aren't fiction. If you decide that you're worthy of that you can have that. You decide whether you get that or not. And it'll be your own blocks preventing you from getting that. And the thing is, since it's your own blocks, you can fix that all on your own. You don't need anyone else. You have that power to fix that, and you can have whatever you want. So if you want the perfect fairy tale romance, go get it, right? It starts with you. It starts with that self-love, right? Opening your heart up to yourself first, right? And you'll get it.
Yes. And if you have a deep burning desire in your heart, in your soul, in your bones, it's not there by accident. You're meant to experience that in this life. We don't all desire all the things. So just remember that. That's good.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point, because if you desire it, right, there's a reason for it, right? And if you are worried that you are like, oh, I'm never going to find a person, this feels wrong, it's because it is wrong. And that's, there's some people where maybe that is their choice, but they'll feel at peace at that. They won't feel like something's wrong. So if you feel like I'm missing something, it's because you are. So get out of your own way and let it come in.
Yeah, it's meant to be a part of your life experience. Yeah. Yes.
I love you.
I love you. Thank you for being here again. And thank you to everyone who's listening and tuning into this episode. And until next time, here's to liberating your wild feminine heart. Bring the boom, I bring the bass, give me a taste, they me the waste. I'm your little plaything. I got to feel